The sun and the moon have always played essential roles in the existence of life on Earth. The sun provides light, warmth, and energy, making it possible for plants, animals, and humans to survive. The moon, although much smaller, influences the oceans, stabilizes the Earth's movement, and lights up the night sky. Both celestial bodies have inspired myths, scientific discoveries, calendars, and cultural traditions throughout history. It is difficult to imagine a world without either of them, yet considering such a possibility helps us better understand how important they truly are. If the sun and the moon were to disappear suddenly, the consequences would be immediate, dramatic, and far beyond anything humanity has ever experienced. The first and most obvious change would be complete darkness. The sun is the main source of natural light for our planet, so its disappearance would instantly turn daytime into night. Within a few minutes, the sky would become black, and the stars would appear even in the middle of the day. At first, people around the world would be shocked and confused. Many would believe that an enormous eclipse had occurred, but they would soon realize that something much more serious had happened. Artificial lights from cities, homes, and vehicles would become the only sources of brightness on Earth's surface. Temperature would begin to fall almost immediately after the sun disappeared. Although the Earth would not freeze within a few hours, the loss of solar energy would gradually cool the planet. During the first week, average temperatures would drop below freezing in many regions. After several months, most of the Earth's surface would become extremely cold, making normal life nearly impossible. Oceans would begin freezing from the top, while the deepest parts would remain liquid for a much longer time because water stores heat efficiently. Eventually, however, even these areas would become much colder than they are today. Plants would be among the first living organisms to suffer. They depend on sunlight to carry out photosynthesis, the process that allows them to produce food and release oxygen. Without sunlight, photosynthesis would stop completely. Most plants would die within days or weeks, depending on the species. As vegetation disappeared, animals that feed on plants would struggle to find food. Soon afterward, predators that depend on those animals would also face starvation. One by one, ecosystems around the world would begin to collapse, because the entire food chain depends directly or indirectly on energy from the sun. Humans would also face enormous challenges. Agriculture would fail because crops could no longer grow without sunlight. Food supplies stored in warehouses and supermarkets would provide only temporary support. Governments would need to organize emergency distribution systems, but resources would become increasingly limited. Fresh fruits and vegetables would disappear first, followed by many other products. Scientists might attempt to grow plants using artificial lighting, powered by nuclear energy or other remaining power sources, but producing enough food for the entire global population would be extremely difficult. The disappearance of the sun would also affect the Earth's atmosphere. As temperatures continued to fall, weather patterns would change dramatically. Rain would become much less common because colder air holds less moisture. Snow and ice would gradually cover large parts of the planet. Eventually, many gases in the atmosphere would begin to behave differently under such extreme cold. Although the atmosphere would not disappear immediately, the environment would become increasingly hostile for both humans and wildlife. Energy production would become one of humanity's greatest concerns. Solar power would obviously stop working completely. Wind energy would also become less reliable, because atmospheric circulation depends largely on heating from the sun. Hydroelectric power might continue for some time, but rivers would gradually freeze as temperatures dropped. Fossil fuels and nuclear power stations would become the most valuable energy sources available. Countries with access to these resources might be able to keep essential services operating for a while, including hospitals, communication systems, and underground shelters. If the moon also disappeared at the same time, another set of serious consequences would follow. One of the moon's most important functions is creating the ocean tides through its gravitational pull. Without the moon, tides would become much weaker because only the sun's gravity would normally influence them. However, if the sun had also disappeared, even that effect would be lost. Oceans would become far calmer, and many coastal ecosystems that depend on regular tides would be severely disrupted. Countless marine species have adapted to tidal movements over millions of years, so the sudden absence of tides would threaten their survival. The moon also helps stabilize the tilt of the Earth's axis. This stability has allowed Earth's climate to remain relatively predictable over long periods. Without the moon, the planet's axis could gradually become less stable, leading to major changes in climate over thousands or millions of years. In the imagined situation where both the sun and the moon disappeared simultaneously, these long-term effects might become less important because life would already face immediate survival challenges. Nevertheless, the moon's role in maintaining Earth's stability demonstrates that it contributes much more than simply providing light at night. The disappearance of both celestial bodies would also affect human psychology. For thousands of years, people have organized their lives according to the rising and setting of the sun. The moon has influenced calendars, religious festivals, navigation, literature, music, and art. Suddenly losing these familiar features of the sky would have a profound emotional impact. Many people would experience fear, confusion, sadness, and uncertainty. Religious interpretations and scientific discussions would likely spread rapidly as humanity searched for explanations for such an unimaginable event. Modern technology would become increasingly difficult to maintain under these conditions. Satellites powered partly by solar energy would stop functioning as their batteries became exhausted. Communication networks, navigation systems, and weather satellites would gradually fail. Transportation would become much more complicated as freezing temperatures damaged roads, railways, and airports. Global trade would almost certainly collapse because producing and transporting goods would become extremely difficult. Countries would need to rely mainly on local resources while attempting to protect their populations from the severe environmental changes. Scientists would work tirelessly to understand what had happened and search for possible solutions. International cooperation would become more important than ever before, because no country could solve such a crisis alone. Researchers might explore ways to create large underground communities powered by nuclear reactors or geothermal energy from inside the Earth. Underground environments would remain warmer than the frozen surface, offering one of the few possible places where humans might continue living for some time. However, maintaining these settlements would require enormous amounts of food, energy, water, and technical knowledge. Interestingly, not all forms of life would disappear immediately. Some microorganisms already survive in extremely harsh environments deep beneath the Earth's surface or near hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. These organisms obtain energy from chemical reactions rather than sunlight. Scientists believe that certain deep-sea ecosystems could continue existing for a considerable time even without the sun. This possibility demonstrates the remarkable ability of life to adapt to difficult conditions. Although complex ecosystems found on the Earth's surface would almost certainly collapse. This imaginary situation also highlights how interconnected natural systems are. The sun provides energy that drives weather, supports agriculture, powers ecosystems, and regulates the climate. The moon influences tides, stabilizes the Earth's movement, and has guided human cultures for thousands of years. Removing both objects would not simply create darkness. It would disrupt nearly every process that allows life to exist. The thought experiment reminds us that many features of our daily lives depend on natural forces that people often take for granted. Ultimately, imagining a world without the sun and the moon reveals just how extraordinary our planet truly is. These two celestial bodies have shaped the Earth's environment, supported the development of life, and inspired human civilization since ancient times. Their disappearance would lead to darkness, freezing temperatures, collapsing ecosystems, widespread food shortages, technological failure, and profound social challenges. Although such an event is purely hypothetical, thinking about it helps us appreciate the delicate balance that makes life on Earth possible. It also encourages greater respect for the natural world and reminds us that our survival depends on countless connections within the universe that continue to operate every single day.